Hi, everyone. Micah here with Fluency Corp. And here we are again with a wonderful expat chat for everybody today. And today we have Jana, and I will let her
Hello.
say her full name.
Hey everybody, Jana here. Actually, the real name is Janaína,
Janina.
but I know it's really hard from anywhere, everybody out of Brazil to really say it. So, Jana, and it's not being like really hard because everybody calls me Jana since I was really young. So, all good, Jana.
That's perfect. I think that's such a good point to make already. Whenever you move or if you work internationally, sometimes your name has to change to make it easier for everybody, right?
Yeah, it is. It is what it is. And honest, like, luckily I didn't have to change to anything that I'm uncomfortable with.
Yeah.
It's kind of like nowadays when I see my full name, like the other day I was in a conference that the name tag came with the full name, and I'm like, oh, that's a long time that I don't see my full name. It's always gonna
And
and the
And
right
pronounce your last name.
Chezanoski.
Chezanoski. And where's that
It's
from?
Polish. It's Polish.
Polish. You have to tell me that story. Tell
And
me
I
how
love
you have
it.
a Polish name.
And honestly, that's always a great introduction to conversations that I have because people always like, okay, because the full name is Janaína Chezanoski da Silva. Da Silva,
Oh, da
it's
Silva.
really
Super
Brazilian,
Brazilian. Yeah.
super Brazilian, really easy. Chezanoski is Polish. And Jana always comes with like, oh, how I say it right. So people will say Jana, Jana, Yana, and I will answer anything, no problem. But the right way to pronounce it is Jana,
Jana.
and Polish is because my mom is Polish, full.
Oh,
Yeah, she's 100%. But it's always like super cool because people when they see my name, they always before, like when I really used to meet with the expats when I was corporate, was really funny because I was working in this Norwegian company, and they will go to the office to meet me for signing papers, immigration, whatever was the reason. And they will always be like really surprised when I will show up. They will be like, "Oh, I was expecting a tall blonde woman,"
we'll have
and
to
here you
ask.
are.
So I have to ask, your mom grew up in Brazil,
Yes, yes, she grew up in Brazil.
but is she's 100% Polish?
Her first language is Polish.
And how did she get to Brazil? Let's start with your mom's expat story first.
Immigrants, my grandparents, her grandparents were immigrants in
Okay.
Brazil, and she's the first generation born in Brazil,
Wow.
but she was born in this Polish neighborhood, let's say, that she
Yeah.
lived until nowadays. And she learned, and she was born there, and her first language is, of course,
Polish at
Polish.
home. Yeah.
And she learned she started to speak to learn Portuguese at the age of 7.
Wow.
Yeah, and for me it was like a great experience because I think that everything starts there, the whole global mobility thing,
Yeah.
because I
Totally.
was in this community. Of course, I wasn't born there, but my weekends, my
Yeah.
whole like my whole early age, like I think, like let's say until I was 15 years old, I was there like every weekend.
Yeah.
That was where I spent like all my
Of
great young
course.
years.
Your grandparents. Yeah. So you were kind of in Poland every weekend.
Exactly. And my grandma was really funny. She would speak Polish with me, and I would answer her in Portuguese. So the whole multicultural thing was like part of my life since day
Day
one.
one.
Yeah.
Yes. And do you know why your great grandparents moved? Was this during a war? Was this during
Yeah, was during the war. The first one, actually.
That's what I was asking. I was trying to do the math and I was like, it can't be World War II. That's not far enough
No,
back.
was the first one. And actually, my mom was born during actually by the end of the World War II. My grandfather, he was part of it, and then he came for a visit, and then when he returned, my mom was already born.
Wow. That's so interesting. I did not know any of that. See, I love asking all these questions and learning. So
Awesome.
it started from a very early age with you. And then one of the first questions, so that the listeners can understand what we're going to talk about, is where have you lived or what languages have you worked in? So that we know kind of what we're going to talk about.
So at the age of 18, when I was 18, I moved to US for an exchange program.
Mm.
And then after a year of exchange at college, was like I had 1 year at college in Brazil, and then I moved to West to Charleston, West Virginia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, always when I say Charleston, everybody like, why? And I'm like, I don't even know. Was kind of like
Well,
internet
there's
wasn't
yeah,
like,
there's programs
hey,
everywhere. Yeah.
I want to go, I want to have an exchange program experience abroad, and like they send this list of options, and I just choose one of the
Yeah,
the
I
states,
love
one of
it.
the cities. Like they said that the college was cool, and I was like, okay, awesome, let's go.
Yeah,
And
yeah. You're
honestly,
adventurous.
like,
So, who did you live with? Tell me about that first month.
oh, was I was with other exchange students from different countries. Like
Mhm.
I had actually was really interesting because Charleston, West Virginia, like really small town, and this I don't know how it's nowadays, but back in 2003, was really funny kind of it because the whole town knew that there are like 11 exchange students there, and I was one of those 11. And
Amazing.
they're like, yeah, Argentinians, Philippines, they're like from all over Europe and
Yeah.
all that. So it was really interesting because as well, I was just interacting with people from completely different cultures, not just the whole impact of getting to Charleston, what was like completely different for me.
So, I have a question, an expat question. I have my personal opinion about it, but everybody has a different one. Do you think it's more helpful to meet other expats or to meet locals?
Locals.
That's
I'm
what I think
so
too.
sorry.
No, don't worry. Don't worry. Do you want me to chat for a second?
My neighbor just decided to do something
Some
really
moving, some
unexpected.
furniture moving. Yeah, yeah.
I'm so
Don't worry
sorry.
about it. So, so I a lot of the times we will people want to meet other people that are from where they're from, but why do you think, or other people that are expats too, why do you think that's not helpful for the big picture or the long run?
For the long run, I would say, because at
Yeah.
first you will just get that desire to connect with people that are in the same place as you, and
Yeah.
you will bond and you will support one another. But the whole magic of being in a different culture is to really dive in, to really understand the new culture, how they do what they do, how they say what they say, and as well to bring your perspective and have the whole connection. So I really believe that the most amazing thing it is to really interact with locals. And when I moved to Florida, I was like really focused on guaranteeing that I was like connecting with locals, and connecting with locals in Florida can be like fabulous because there are people from all over as well.
They are. Yes, yes. Yeah. I feel like it's tricky with the whole like feeding your soul to meet people that you can connect with quickly, other expats or people that speak your first language, but at the same time, that can alienate you from digging in or getting better in the local language. So it's a balancing act, I think. It's a little tricky. So you were in West Virginia for a year?
Yes.
Okay, and you were living with other expats. So tell me about your first month there with culture and kind of like What was crazy that you realized, or what was different than what you thought?
Oh, I my expectations was like, okay, I'm gonna live like in a North American movie, and we'll be so excited, like college life, right? And I was I wasn't expecting the city to be that small. I wasn't expecting to be that cold.
Oh yeah.
I'm from South Brazil. Nowadays I live in Rio, but I'm from South Brazil. We have cold weather,
Yeah.
but it was my first time like seeing snow and all
Oh
that.
wow.
And the first impression was like, oh, how beautiful. But then like after a couple of days, for me, it felt like so depressing at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah.
So everything was kind of like I wasn't expecting to see a poor side, like a city with a lot of poverty. So
Yeah.
that surprised me. Uh, and I at the first I didn't like it. Uh, was was gray, cold. Everybody in the street, like anywhere, people will just look at me as I was an alien.
What?
And yeah, I was like popular at college, everything. And then I got to this place where like everybody looks at me as like, who are you? You are for clearly you're not from here, right? So
Wow.
at first, the first month, I was and oh okay. And of course on the topic, uh I I'm been learning English since I start school. Like I had the privilege to go to a bilingual school from my
Yeah.
really young age, and I thought that I was comfortable with my English. I'm like, I speak the language. And then I got there, like the whole accent thing, like because as we were talking before the show, right? It's completely different when you speak a second language with the people that are learning with you, with
Oh
the
yeah.
people with like me as a Brazilian, if I'm speaking the language with another Brazilian, I will kind of like understand how they are translating in their mind, what
Yes.
they're trying to say. So the communication just goes with the flow, right?
Yeah.
And
You're on the
then,
same level
yeah,
of
you're
how
like,
you
okay,
speak English. Yeah.
I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
And then I got in Charleston, was like, oh my God, I do not speak the language. I cannot understand. They speak way too fast. They come with a lot of slangs. They have like the accent. I'm not used to the accent.
Yeah.
So it was really hard for me. I remember like the radio, I was like, oh my God, I can't understand anything of
Yeah.
what they are saying. So I was really uncomfortable with the whole thing, asking for people to repeat themselves, to say it again and all that. And people were not really welcome with that because
Yeah.
as I said, we were not used with the culture of having foreigners there.
Yeah.
So I was uncomfortable. They were not a lot really friendly about it. So seriously, first week, first 7 days, I was calling my mom crying,
Yeah.
18 years old. I was crying like I want to go back.
That's
And
okay. I did the
and
same
that,
thing at 26. You're fine.
that was the scenario for like the first full month. I was
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
calling my mom, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. You're like, what have I done? Where am I? What am I doing here? Yes. It's very scary, and it's very it's just shocking. You thought you would understand. You thought it would be different. Yeah. It's very hard to do that.
Exactly. And until one moment that my mom was just like really straightforward. She's like, okay, stop calling me crying. Enjoy the experience. You're there, face what you need to face. You will get used, but stop crying. Like put your mind where you are. And that for me
Yeah.
was like really
Just
okay.
accept it,
Good. I'm
right?
like, okay, I will do it. And that's the magic of being young as well. The same
Yes.
way, like couple of weeks, I was just like, you know what? I will make friends with the locals because I was in
Nice.
this real little group of 11 foreigners. And then I was just like, I will connect with the locals. And then was when everything became amazing. I was just like fascinating. And then I managed to make friends with people that I was like, please help me. How I say this, what I say, how I
Yeah.
say that,
Yeah.
why people are not understanding me. And I remember the first day when I was, I was in a car and I understood the radio. And I
Yay.
was so emotional. I'm like, I understand what they're saying.
So when you were starting to make friends, if somebody else is moving or somebody's child is going to do a study abroad like you did, how do you suggest, because it's hard to walk up to strangers and be like, "Can you be my friend?" But how did you meet people? Do you have any tips?
I'm I'm not an introvert, so it's not that I ever had any problems on talking with strangers.
Yeah.
But I really put myself there. Uh,
Yeah.
I will not say that was always easy. Like people will make fun of me. They
Yeah.
will they will make jokes about my accent, make jokes about something that I was trying to say. And
Okay.
let me tell you, now it's like 20 years later, it still
Yeah.
happens.
Yes. No, no, yeah. I still in
Still
Spanish
happens.
people are like, "What?" I'm like, "Oops, I said something bad."
And of course, nowadays I have a completely different mindset. But
Yeah.
before I was uncomfortable, I thought that I had to lose my accent to have like a good English. I
Yeah.
thought that and nowadays for me, it's like I love it when people talk
Yeah.
about my accent. It's like, yeah, it talks that there's a story there. There's a reason why I have an accent, right? But for me, it wasn't. It's like I really put myself in a vulnerable position, saying that I want to understand more. I want to know places to go, what they do on weekends, what it's common about their foods.
So asking a lot of questions, I agree. People like to talk about themselves. And so asking them questions about their culture, Colleen yesterday on Expat Chat said the same thing. Ask them questions, be interested in what they're doing, and then they will want to help you. They will want to show you their world.
That yeah, that's so true. Show that you are there because you care about this new culture that
Yeah.
you are arriving, right? I think it's really common for foreigners, for expats to arrive in a town and be like missing everything about home, their home country, the
Yeah.
food and the culture and everything, and they just like focus on what they are missing, and
Yeah.
they forget to see like there's good in everywhere. So if you show interest in that you are interested to know about their culture, people
Mhm.
will always be welcome to tell you about it. And honestly, I think the whole thing of being like 11, one of the 11 different ones in the town, um, and at some points was fun, others were uncomfortable. uh People will come and people will just like stop me in the street, and like, for example, was actually the first time that someone came and said like, oh, how it is, oh, so Brazil, right? Which country are you? And I'm like, oh, Brazil. And they're like, oh, how it is to live in the jungle. And I'm like, I don't know, because I come from a big city. And then but it's like you need to understand that the world is big. We tend to feel like, oh, how you don't know about Brazil, or how do
Yeah.
you know about uh United States, like everybody knows. No, maybe your bubble, you're comfortable with the fact that your bubble understands about what you
It's so
understand.
true.
But the world is so big, people cannot know everything about everywhere. So
No, and that's the whole point of those programs is to expand people's ideas. I mean, it doesn't even have to be international. I was just having a conversation with someone at an event last night, and she moved from Memphis, Tennessee to another big city on the East Coast, and they asked her if she had electricity. Tennessee. Yeah. So we don't know what we don't know sometimes. And yeah, so we
And
just have
people
to
will
tell
not know if you don't share, if you do not explain, if you do
them.
not bring what it's the reality. And when you say like the difference, like for me when I moved from Charleston to Tampa, Florida, for me it was a big shock. I remember like
Yeah.
that's like funny story. Like I arrived on a Sunday night and then Monday morning I went to a bank to open my account because it was a different state and all that. And I arrived at the bank and I was so uncomfortable. And honestly, I was so uncomfortable with the fact that everywhere in the bank, I had all the informations in English and Spanish. And around me, I was hearing a lot of people speaking Spanish and even Portuguese. And I was so into, I got like so comfortable with the whole year that I spent in Charleston. Uh, that for me, that was like I remember that feeling like this is not US. Why these people? Yeah, I remember that was like guilty as I can say. My first impression wasn't good. I didn't. I'm like, this is not US. Why people are speaking Spanish around me? What is the deal? And then again, amazing thing about being young and open for the new challenge
Yeah.
and new opportunities, like pretty easy. I was like fascinated because then that was it. Like in my building, I had neighbors from all over the world. And like in Tampa, I made friends from people
Oh yeah.
literally from all over.
From West
But
Virginia to Tampa is night and
at
day.
first, I was just like, this is not US.
It
That
is
is so
crazy.
different.
Yeah, Florida is very interesting. I remember when I was in Miami and I felt the same thing. I was like, what is happening here? It is a unique state for
But
sure.
I love it. It's
Yes.
honestly, it's where in US, it's home. Like when I'm in
So why
Tampa,
did
when
you
I'm in
move
Florida.
to Florida? Tell us about that move.
Honestly, was just to check out. The idea was just to spend 6 months to kind of like have a different person. Because like when I was in Charleston, I was like on the weekends, I was traveling, doing road trips and all that, but I never went south. And I'm like, okay, I and everybody was talking great about Florida, right? Oh, it's Florida.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, why not? But the idea was to just spend 6 months. But then I got that, and then after this first impression, I literally fell in love. I remember that my mom on that time was like freaking out because she's like, okay, where are you finishing? Where you're continuing school, right?
Yeah.
College. And then I remember there was this whole thing of like, I'm so sorry.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. It always happens. We're all, I'm sitting on my sofa, you're in your house and
And
people have
seriously, the
noises.
whole day was so quiet, and they literally decided to go now,
Of course.
not that.
And sorry for me.
So,
I'm kind of cold.
so
Okay, so
when
where are you finishing school? Of course, the
my mom
question of
was
all
so
mothers.
concerned. Let me do one thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Take your time. It's really okay.
I will talk with my neighbor.
All right, everybody. Janet's going to go do that. So I would like to see if anybody has any questions. Let's give her 1 second to do that. And I will use this time to talk about our Spanish classes. Speaking of Portuguese and Spanish in Florida, we do have our last review of Spanish for HR recruiting coming up. And then also in 2 weeks, we have a new theme for Spanish for HR. So make sure that you go to our Fluency Corp LinkedIn page or to my LinkedIn page or John Colditz, and you can sign up for that Spanish for HR. It's all free, and you'll get some amazing PDFs to work on throughout the week and little cheat sheets for you to use at work, and you can pass it around to anybody. And then next week, we also have English for Business, and that's for high level speakers like Jana. and other people who want to improve their idioms, phrasal verbs, and tweak their pronunciation. So, all right, Jenna.
I think I managed to ask them to hold for 30 minutes.
Beautiful.
I'm like,
Beautiful.
I don't know what you are doing, but I'm in the middle of something really important. Can you stop the noise for 30 minutes? I don't know if it will work, but hopefully. I'm so sorry. I really apologize.
Oh, no worries. I just did announcements about our English and Spanish classes, so all good.
Awesome.
Okay. So,
And then I have a bachelor's in international relations, right? So my mom was really concerned how much I will delay because even with the exchange programs, kind of like it's different. So I was kind of studying there, but was delaying my graduation. And for my mom was really important. But then she reached out to uh, the coordinators at my college back here, and they were just like, if she wants to delay a little bit, don't worry because she's like really living international relations. So that
ah,
would just add to her, to, that would just add for her personal experience and
yeah,
everything
sure.
else she can learn when she's back. But that it's not a bad thing. And I'm really grateful for that because, yes, the whole experience, everything that I experienced living in US, it really add to the professional that I am today, the way that I see the world, and of course, for I end up choosing to work with after the whole studying and all that. So, yeah, it was really tricky. But then I spent that was like a long extension. Like then I changed my visa status. I had the permanent status, and I was there for 4 years.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. And so what was your first job? Ben had asked a question when when we first came in here, and I still want to get to that. So what was your first job speaking exclusively in English? What was that?
Okay, so in Charleston, West Virginia, while during the time that I was at school, my first job ever, and was my first job ever, I never had to work in Brazil, was at McDonald's.
Ah, I worked at
And
Sonic.
and for me it was like really awesome, like because of course I start like uh because once I was already having like couple of months. I was already a couple of months there.
Yeah.
So I thought like they will put me in the kitchen. But they said like they really challenged me and I
The
was like
cash
on drive
register.
through.
Oh my God, that's great though
You had
for
no
you.
idea how much I learned. It was so hilarious
Oh, I'm sure.
because I remember the first time somebody came and said like without them. And I'm like, without Bam? Oh, without Ben. And I'm like, I was like asking and I couldn't understand. I asked them to come to the window. And I'm like, what do you mean? And then they're like, yeah, I don't want the bread. Just like, I just
Without the
want the
bun.
sandwich without, without, without the bread. And I'm like,
New
you
word,
don't.
bun.
But
I
yeah,
love it.
my first job was at McDonald's. I had this opportunity to be really interacting. That was really good for me to deal with the accent and all that. And then in Florida, I that was like, and that's a thing about me. I challenge myself always, right?
Yeah.
Uh, so when I arrived in Florida, I applied to work in a call center.
Oh wow.
Do you
That's
remember
so hard on the phone.
the 411?
Yes,
Yeah,
that was
so
you.
what's the 411? Just for the ones who don't know, it's kind of like what you do on Google, like where's this thing? How I get to
Yeah.
this place? What is the number for this office or whatever it is? Like, and I applied to work there as a bilingual because on the time I was already speaking Spanish as well.
Oh wow.
And
I forgot about that.
and then I went through the whole process and then at the end was like a month doing interviews and all that as a bilingual, right? So a bilingual, you have accent, right? And then they said that no, then my English wasn't good and I was really frustrated and I asked if I could reapply like in a future scene. And they're like, yeah, get better and return. And like following month, I was there again. And then the whole difference was that my final um, My final interview was with someone that was bilingual. And then they're like, oh my God, that's great. We even received calls from people that speak Portuguese. So it's even a plus. So I had
Uh,
a great time and I worked for like a couple of years at the
wow.
411, giving directions, being doing what Google does nowadays to
Yeah.
tell you how to get to one place and another. Made great friends. And then after that for a long time as well. And then was another thing like, okay, 401, blah, blah, blah. And then Jana challenged herself. I want to work in the call center for Macy's
Oh wow.
on their credit service. So I was a collector.
Yeah. Ooh.
So 2008, like
Yeah.
big, not a good
Big
timing,
problems. Yeah.
uh, and but good timing for collections. So I was a bilingual collector at Macy's for like a couple of years as well, and
Amazing.
those two experiences at Macy's and at 411, I was bilingual, I was always with uh, people from all over, like a lot of people from Latin America, and I had the experience to like really hear stories about all those countries that are like right here, right by
Yeah.
my side, right?
Yeah.
And to see the value, how rich it is, how much it brings the whole cultural diversity, how we can like, and everybody has a different accent, have everybody has a different thing, but we can just collaborate. So, um, yeah, I really put myself there, and I'm like,
You did
okay,
put yourself out there.
I know I can learn, I know I can do it, and yeah, I can do it.
That's amazing. And so, to Ben's question, I want to go back to working in your second language in Florida first. So, at that time, what do you remember as being the hardest part about it?
uh, the the first one was this whole thing of like applying for a bilingual position and the whole accent be a problem. Um, like, okay,
Yeah.
it makes no sense. So that was the first thing, and then of course that thing that happened happened on that time, and I think like will always happen there. I think the majority of people, they're like really welcome and friendly, uh, but there are some people they're not welcoming. They do
Yeah.
not like it to talk with people that are not from their country. And
Yeah.
I was doing customer service, right? I was
Yeah.
uh, and then they like, of course you will hear really bad things. People will tell you to return to your country or to work in a job that it's for you. And yeah, that's
Nasty.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I will tell you that I had more good experience than bad, like
Good. Bad.
uh
Good.
from people to really appreciating and to be like a and to be like a reference to show to my friends that it's possible.
Yeah.
I remember when I was at in both places, I will tell people like apply. Why you do not apply? Why you think that you need to be in a job that you're not happy, right? Um, but yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Talking about work before I got to Macy's, as soon as I moved, because it was just like relocating because I was far from the 401. Then I spent was really fast, was a couple of months that I worked at Hilton
Oh
in Clearwater
wow.
Beach. Yeah, but was as a housekeeper, and they didn't let me stay longer, and then I end up being a problem because they're like, oh, you should like we should find you a job in the admin team or something. But yeah, but I had the experience to be putting in positions that they just assume like, oh, because you it's not your first language, uh that's not a job for you. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And then what about now? Tell me where you're working now.
So nowadays I'm at Glomo. I work remotely, but quite often I'm in Dallas, but it's super cool. And for me it's like it's a dream. It's a dream. I'm living my dream, like, because I moved back to Brazil after almost 6 years in US,
Wow.
and I moved back to be around my family,
Yeah.
and I moved back with this whole idea that I really want to find to create an opportunity to work back in US because I
Yeah.
spent those uh, early adult life years
Yeah.
in US, and I really connect with the culture and everything. I love everything. I have like I'm thankful for the opportunities for uh, how much like I grow really fast with the whole experience
Yeah.
abroad. So I really want to get back to work to US. So I got into mobility, and at first for long years I was more focused in the Europe side. Like I was in a Norwegian company, uh, but I was always like trying to make that connection to connect with people. With global mobility professionals in US to like see the opportunities to like of course keep it up with my English to so I was always making connections, and then that's like a long story, but I was trying to go to the ERC for two
Oh,
years.
yes. I remember
For me,
this.
that was like key. I need
Amazing.
to be in at ERC because then I will really connect with people, as we were talking before. Like I will really have
Yes.
connection. It's not gonna be just on LinkedIn. I will really like shake hands. I can write, you know what I'm saying? And so for years, I was really focused, like creating my network on LinkedIn, making posts in English. I changed my whole LinkedIn to English to really connect with the people
Exactly.
that I was really like looking forward. And then I create the chance actually to be at the ERC. I went by
Yeah. Yeah,
myself,
you did.
did couch surfing,
And then
like
how long have you been working? Well, you're in Brazil, but you're working in English every minute of every day, right?
yes.
So now
There are
it's not a
days,
bilingual position really. It's an
no,
English position.
it's not.
Yeah.
There are days, yeah, I live by myself, and it's like there are days that I
Don't
literally
speak Portuguese.
I don't speak Portuguese. And sometimes it's so hilarious because maybe I will be in a meeting and then my mom texts me and I'm talking with you in English, and like you need to do the and then
Totally.
sometimes we'll write her
Totally.
like a big message all in English, and
Yep.
she will be like, okay, when you have I know you were in a meeting. When you had the chance, tell me what you said.
That oh my gosh, that happens with me all day long because I'm going in between French and Spanish most of the day and I get super
And it
confused. And you don't even realize you did it.
no,
No.
you don't. It happens a lot. Like for example, sometimes I am she like I do work, and of course, it's different, right? If I leave my house, then I will
Of course.
interact with people that speak Portuguese, of course. But like my phone, everything it's in English. I watch a lot of TV, like my Netflix, everything,
Yeah.
and like the movies, I always watch in English, right? And then sometimes it's really funny because sometimes, like a movie or something, I will not remember if I was for me because it just goes like,
It's
oh,
so
did you
true.
watch?
I don't
In
even
English, I'm
know.
like, I don't remember. I
Yep.
know I watched.
And so I think there's a misconception sometimes. I mean, I have a high level of Spanish, but I learn something new every day. You have an extremely high level of English. And so I think a lot of
Yeah.
times people think like, oh, you're good. Like it's not hard anymore. But I want to know, like now, as such a high level advanced speaker, what are the challenges you face now, even at this high level?
There's, yeah, you always have something to learn. There's always a way to get better. Vocabulary, it that you can always make it bigger, better. Reading, I try to read books in English.
Yeah,
Uh, as more as I interact with people, I get like even different accents and all that.
yeah,
But I think that whole thing that was a challenge in the beginning, as I told you, I think that type of people will always exist. There are some people that they level your capability as a professional based on the fact that English is not your first language.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of like goes together with being a woman. Like you need to kind of prove yourself twice
Yeah.
because you are speaking as a second language. Sometimes, like I see myself trying to uh, I will repeat myself or kind of like make like a longer statement just to guarantee that I'm making it clear my
Yeah.
point. And it's just because, like, I know that if I was speaking in Portuguese, will be like super fast and direct, but I just want to make sure that my point it's being clear. I don't I That doesn't make me do not do anything.
Yeah.
Like I will not. I'm a yes
It's
person.
not going to hold you back.
Will not hold me back. I will say yes to opportunities to be with you here, to uh, be on a conference, to talk with high level, like hierarchy
Yeah, you
professionals.
did in Vegas. You were one of the,
Yeah,
not the presenters, but the organizers. Yeah.
but sometimes, like, of course, sometimes it hurts a little bit because you see that people will just do not value the same way, or like kind of you need
Yeah.
to really reinforce yourself to prove that you're capable of something.
Yeah.
But I think that it's just like the challenge just made us better. So, and just to I and because I really believe that it's the opposite.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm not capable. I'm like I'm really putting myself on like in a different language to do what I know I'm capable of. So, but as I told you, the same thing still happens. They're more amazing and welcome people, and especially in the industry that we work at, I
Oh,
think
right.
I'm privileged.
Global.
We're really privileged to work in a global mobility industry where people are used to deal with the diversity, right? But always, it's 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 always there.
Absolutely. And I you hit on something like they put the they put your expertise at the level of your English as opposed to your experience or years in the business, your knowledge. And I read in the Harvard Business Review years ago, there was a strong suggestion and recommendation: do not hire based on fluency alone. Because someone can have a high fluency, but low knowledge of the job.
Yes,
And so really focusing on the experience they have and their background more than how they make it. Like the English can improve, but
yes,
or whatever, Spanish, Portuguese, whatever it is, but you can't learn 10 years of experience in a month or two.
exactly,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. And yeah,
So,
but and I really think like with the challenge, I really believe that the whole experience that I have in a really young age, with a second language, how much I push myself to really be in those environments with locals, to really try to experience, to really be in a uh, work routine. When I moved back to Brazil, I was always like all the working experience. Like one of the things they were like big uh
plus.
a big plus was the English. Like
Yeah.
I was the person supporting. I was the person who would really be able to communicate with the expats.
Yeah.
So the doors will open in different ways, and we need to believe in ourselves, of course. Like
Yes.
and but the challenge will be there, will not change. It's just like in different levels. And let's be realistic. The challenge, when once you grow as a professional, they happen in any language. Doesn't matter what is the language, you will always have a challenge. That's why you were growing, right?
Yeah.
And yes, having choosing to be in a different culture, in a different language, the language will be another challenge for you to to overcome.
Absolutely. So I want to flip this question. Usually, the question I ask is, what tips do you have for people moving? And I think we have talked about a lot of those of, getting out there, trying to talk with people. Um, I do think there's an element of personality. You know, you're outgoing, and it is easier to talk to people if you're outgoing. It's definitely harder to talk to people if you're shy. So that is tricky. But I want to ask you, as someone who works in their second language so much, what suggestions do you have for people working with people who work in a second language? Or what suggestions do you have for people who only speak one language? How can they be good listeners, or how can they help? How can they improve communication with you? Do you have any tips for how we can listen better to our non native second language colleagues?
I think it's like it's a conversation that needs to start from day one of how comfortable the person is for how what will be a good way to support your for me to support you on learning uh to grow your vocabulary and all that. Well, how you will make you be comfortable, because there are people that are not comfortable to be corrected with in public, right? There are people that are just like, oh, correct me exactly when I say something, right? uh but for a fact, to never, like, doesn't matter what is uh the way that the person choose, like, oh, right at the moment that I say something, or after, please bring it up where the things that I can say better. It's like, let the person try, like, try support the exposure, support the person to feel comfortable. Do not make uh make it like, show how big is that, like, that person is really challenged in a challenge. So support them, bring encourage. I think encouragement
Mhm.
is really important. Do not cut if they did not ask for help. Do not try to cut and move over, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I know what you're trying to say, let me say
Oh,
it.
I know. I hate that.
That's
Don't, okay, don't
awful.
interrupt. Don't
Well,
interrupt
like,
when they
because
are struggling to find the words. Be patient.
if, yeah, be patient, because if the person did not said, like, what is the word, how I can say, if the person is still in their mind finding the right words, let the process
It's
go,
so
right?
true. Yeah, it's so true. And I know that can be hard because that does take a lot of patience, right? I had someone, I was speaking Spanish and it was very low level still, and she was in a hurry that day. And she said to me, "I don't have time for you to make a sentence today." And I was like, touche. That was very honest. That was very honest. It took me a long time to make a thought, you know? So,
Because it's part of the learning process, right? If
yeah, it takes
always when
time.
I'm trying to say what I want to say without asking for help, if I'm creating the finding the right words,
Yeah.
and you move forward, you step ahead and try to say what I'm trying to
Fill
say,
in the blanks. Yeah.
yeah, will just make me quiet in the next opportunity, because I will be like, if I try to say, if I make myself a little bit longer, will not make people comfortable. I don't want to put myself there, and I don't want to take others time, so that we will just have the person being quiet, but being patient, being
Yeah.
supportive. um yeah, and yeah.
I think everybody is so different also. So sometimes I'm struggling. I just spent a week in Chicago with my two friends from Mexico. So it was 100% Spanish for 9 days. And sometimes I would get stuck that I would want them to fill in the blank. So
Yeah,
I think the best thing to do is ask,
ask.
right? Like, just ask, "Hey, if I do you want me to guess what word, or do you want me to just wait?" Like, I'm happy to help, but I'm happy to wait. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Because, like, this whole blank thing you just mentioned that you had, like, in Spanish, that's something that I always tell my friends when they ask me about working. in a second language. We have those like in
First
our own
language.
language.
Of course we
That
do.
happens.
Yeah.
You always remember all the words, exactly the word that you want to say. No, maybe in your first language it's just easy for you to flip and find another one. But sometimes you just blank. Like, what is the name of that thing?
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot. Oh, what I was saying. Oh, I lost track of my thinking. That happens in our first language. So why it's a
Yeah.
big deal when I if I do that in a second language?
Yeah.
It's okay. There's no
No.
problem. Do not freak out. Breathe. Just be genuine. Be honest. Oh,
Yeah.
I lose track of my thinking. Or can you help me? Or what is the name? What? Ask for help. It's okay. Ask people to repeat themselves.
Oh
Say
my
that you
gosh,
did not
repeat.
understand what
Yeah,
you mean with. I think
it's
like what
okay.
you mean with. It's like because like maybe you thought that was super clear, but uh no, I understood that you said X and you're trying to say. So I'm a big fan of what you mean with what you
Yeah.
really expect from this,
Yeah.
because that's the thing that I think it's a challenge for people in their second language. They feel like that because comes with the whole it's a process, right? You
Yeah.
feel uncomfortable, you know that your professionalism is being has that extra challenge because you're speaking in a second language. Then you feel uncomfortable on asking people to kind of like explain again something or
I
to
know.
be more clear or to go over details because you just
Yeah.
feel that you're like endorsing the whole um how good you are in what you do. But like
Exactly.
that does not make you less, will just make your life easier. Ask if you
Yeah.
don't know, if you are it's not clear, ask. And if you, and even like sometimes to make the other person feel, making it clear like, oh, do you want this way or do you want it that way? Because the way that you said gives me the possibility of thinking X and Y, and then you even give the opportunity, bring the opportunity to show that you understand what they're talking about. Maybe it wasn't clear the direction. So, and then the people that
Yeah.
are working with people that speak in a second language to really be intentional and explain, to really be clear in your communication. And I think that can really like help when you have like somebody that's speaking a second language around you. I really have the impression that that adds to your communication with everybody else,
Yeah. Tell us why.
because like it takes you from that position of thinking that you're just making yourself always pretty clear, and then once you are like you will see that it's not just about the second language. Maybe the person in a second language will be more asking you more, but then you're like, oh, maybe I can make myself more clear,
Yeah.
or maybe I'm not giving enough details,
Yeah.
or yeah,
Yeah. It
I
makes us focus on communication in a different way than if it's all native speakers.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Everybody wins.
So, for preparation to move to a new country, this will be my last question. What what is one thing, I don't want to say the biggest thing, but what is one really important thing? Is there something that we can do to prepare? And then once we get there, what is one thing that you would say really try to do this?
I really think that the whole language walks together with the cultural diversity. Like that's one of the reasons that I'm fascinated for other languages, because it always comes with the culture.
Yeah.
It's not all it there was never and will never be just words. You're not translating always exactly a word. You're trying to communicate in a different language, and that comes with understanding the culture, how, if they're more expensive, more like if they were more warm, less, if they're more talkative, if
Yeah.
how they express their feelings, how they show appreciation, and it comes with culture. So I think like it always, if you are going, you need to be open for the new, knowing that you are bringing something new, but they are. uh, welcoming you with a lot new and that will just add to your baggage. I will like back in the days at my first experience, I remember my mom telling me like, why you're not reading your books that you study? And I'm like, because I'm been studying for like 12 more over 12 years.
Yeah.
So what do you want me to study? Everything that
Yeah.
are in the books, I already know. I would really prepare like my ear.
Yeah.
I think like movies, music, radio, and
Yeah.
nowadays we have Spotify,
Yeah.
like all the other channels, but all those broadcasts. I
Yeah.
think like because you when you are like really in a new culture, the whole hearing that comes with the whole accent and how you feel. I think like prepare your hearing to this new language that you'll be exposed to. It's like key. Read because you will just like support your vocabulary,
Yeah.
but I would say that the whole hearing it's super key.
Yeah. I would have to agree with you. That's, yeah. Uh, you need hundreds of hours of listening and listening and listening to really hear the rhythm, to hear the vowel sounds, how they really sound, how they link together or don't link together. And yeah, you need to hear the real language, right?
It is. And when I say that, I prove myself always when I go to US and I return. I always arrive at like once I arrive, it's kind of like, oh, even like, and as you said, I'm every day speaking English with
Yeah.
the same people
Yeah.
and with new people and all that. But when I arrive in US, there is this until it clicks. Like the first
It's so
24
true.
hours, I need to click. And I always have this impression like after a couple of days or a week or if it's a long time, I just I just feel like my vocabulary grows every time that I
I know.
go it. And then I hear better, I speak better, and
Yeah,
it just changes. And then
it
my
does.
friends here, if they see me right when I arrive, they say like, "Oh, your English is different when you return, and your English is different when you're going," because that is what it is. When you're like 100% hearing all the
Yeah.
time one thing, it just changes. So I really think the hearing really impacts
Okay.
a lot, and it never ends, never.
No, no, it doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. So Jana tells everyone to please listen, listen, listen if you're going to have to go and work in English somewhere else, or if you're going to maybe move to Latin America as an English speaker, start listening to that radio just to start getting the sounds. Jana, thank you so much for being with us. It's
Thank you for
always
the
so
invitation.
much fun talking with you in general, and I can't wait to have dinner in Dublin. I don't know who
Yes.
else out there is going to Eura in Dublin, but we will all be there. We're already filling our meeting slots and our dinner slots and our drink spots and our every
Let's
spot
see.
on the calendar.
Let's see how much fun will be to really get used to their accents.
Oh, yes, yes, exactly. Okay, we'll have a post Dublin chat on how even I did understanding. Okay? Sound
Awesome.
good?
That will be fun. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Sorry
All
for
right.
the whole disturbing. And yeah, have a good
All
one.
right. Bye, everyone. We hope to see you next time in Expat Chat or HR Leaders. And then we have our free Spanish for HR class coming up and our advanced business for professionals English class. See you guys next time.
Awesome.
Bye.
See ya.